Welcome back to episode 5 of Dispatches from the Dugout, and surprisingly or not, we are focusing on the 1950s this episode. We're going to look at a couple of items from the collection. 1950s is sort of the National Service is coming in. We're going to have a look at the kit change and a reworking of the training pamphlets. We're also going to look at a what if, and the what if this episode is if the Vickers had been replaced post-war, what would have come in, what changes, and stuff like that, as well as a look at the next generation of development of small arms as well. But so what has changed immediately, Rich, in the dugout?
Well, nothing on the Vickers.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. Actually, the Vickers of the 1950s is the same as the Vickers of the 1940s. Mm-hmm. We peaked. Yeah. Dial sights don't need changing, and the what if is going to cover actually what could have happened around this.
Yeah.
The thing that has changed, though, is, Tom, if you can grab it, is the ammunition box. So, might seem really geeky, but that's what we are. The ammunition boxes that we've got here are what actually you see most people using.
Yeah, you do.
As ammunition boxes for the Second World War and stuff. But they come in at the end of the war. They're originally introduced as the jungle pack ammunition.
Okay.
Because they can be sealed. They're a sealed liner. And they've each got 250 rounds in. 2 of these fit in the... So this is the H51, or maybe H50. I'm confused now. But they, one fits in... 2 of these fit in one of the bigger boxes.
Yeah.
And then each one of those has the liner inside, and it becomes a pretty standard piece all the way up until 70s. That's how ammunition came.
Right.
So
you say it came in at the end of the war?
Yeah.
Did it see any sort of issue in Northwest Europe at all?
Not that we're aware of.
Right.
And arguably not that we're aware of in the Far East as well. It sort of went into stockpiled kind of ammunition straight away. And certainly I think that one's marked up 1944.
Yeah.
And they weren't. It's... Repacked 44 it didn't happen. So that's one of the examples that we've got in the collection that was probably marked up by reenactors in 1994.
Right.
There's a 45 here.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Yeah.
So that changes. Logistics change.
Yeah.
How the army uses the Vickers into the 50s changes. Back into infantry battalions, 6 guns per battalion. That's how we're organised. And then you've got the kit changes for the individuals, which you're going to talk a bit more about the equipment. But the uniform, we've got 1949 pattern uniform, open collar, bit smarter, worn with a shirt and tie most of the time.
Tailored as well.
Yeah.
Can be tailored, but still serge, still back dressage. Mark IV helmet, again, comes in 1944 as the Mark III, same shape shell, different liner, Mark IV, then in service until the composite Kevlar helmets of 1985 come in. So, forever.
Yeah.
Cold War.
You see them with the certainly in Northern Ireland with the
visors,
with the visors,
the riot visor.
Yeah, the riot visors on. And
so some of this changes, not much. Still looks pretty much Second World War.
It's gone back. The battle dress has gone back to more the 40 pattern than the 40 austerity. It's that smartness of
putting some pleats in and things like that. Yeah.
From the collection, we have our mannequin here in, as we said, in the sort of the latest gear. So we're going to look at the webbing has gone from the 1937 pattern webbing to 1944 pattern webbing. So obvious change in colour. The metalwork has gone from brass to steel.
Green steel.
Green steel, yeah.
But it's a lighter weight.
Lighter weight, yeah.
webbing.
It's not as thick, and the pouches are bigger. On these ones, there's actually a reducer lug, so you can, if you stop things jangling around in your pouches.
I'm guessing that's if you're not carrying Bren mags, you can reduce the pouch height.
Yeah.
For whatever reason they thought that was necessary. I'm not sure.
The other major differences is on the left-hand pouch there, if Rich can turn it round, is where your bayonet frog now is part integral to the pouch side, making it potentially slightly easier to retrieve your bayonet. And actually, as Matt was telling me just before we started, the belt is in 3 sections.
Yeah.
And the way that the braces come round and attach back under the armpits is so in the jungle, if your belt has rubbed and you've got jungle sores, you can actually remove the back section, middle section of the belt, and the rest of your webbing.
I think there was complaints from Burma wearing 37 pattern that had created quite horrendous jungle sores.
Yeah.
So that's something that back section of the belt is removed.
Yeah.
So this is designed for sort of jungle use.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other obvious is gone to a very American style water bottle, aluminium, gone from the enamelled steel of the last 2 wars, plus the canteen and the canteen and cup.
Yeah.
And then
so this one's fitted as well with a revolver holster.
Okay.
Which is probably worth a sort of reminder that obviously all the stuff in here is for machine gunners.
Yes.
And not all machine gunners had pistols or revolvers. Some did, but most of the time they'd be carrying rifles or maybe machine carbines, submachine guns. We've got it set up for a revolver.
Yeah.
But then this 44 pattern seems to sort of last in service for quite a long time. Yeah. Particularly into the 80s with Gurkhas and jungle warfare schools and things like that.
I'm fairly certain a lot of cadets in the 80s were going to be getting issues with.
Wow, they still had some 37
pattern,
let alone 44. So it's an interesting set.
Yeah.
Did this need to be blancoed?
No. So it's dyed that colour.
That colour, and
because blanco just wear off. as well.
Yeah,
so
certainly in a jungle environment.
It sort of develops from the fact that they were dyeing webbing.
Yes.
In the jungle, well, not in the jungle, but in the Far East.
Yeah.
In the Second World War as well.
And then the other thing, the shoulder straps do have more designed padding.
Yeah, they're much wider shoulders.
A bit more like the Canadian 37 pattern.
Oh, okay. Super.
And of course, the blouse was developed to be worn with a shirt and tie at this stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was to be in competition with the Americans, who look very smart through all ranks.
To be honest, it's sort of rare to see 44 pattern with battle dress because it's just different theatres at that point.
Yeah. At this stage, we're pretty much an occupational army in Germany as well as British Army of the Rhine, and I think that the shirt and tie is part of that occupational, more approachable.
Yes, less worry.
Yeah,
super.
Less worry.
Okay. Rich, what have you got?
So these changes from the end of the Second World War, picking up on lessons learned, because this all comes out of lessons learned. Mm-hmm. But one of those is this. So this is out of our archive, and actually these are some of the earliest manuals that we had. To the point that when I was young and stupid, they're completely transcribed, not just scanned. They're transcribed on the website.
Okay.
But these are.
Are you going to do that with all the manuals?
No. 1951 series of manuals. These are infantry training manuals as opposed to the small arms training. Right. So all of the Second World War stuff are buff covers, so light brown covers, and then small arms training. And they stop those and they go to infantry training, blue covers, or about 1948, 49. It might not seem much, but it was just, war's over, change everything, learn everything new. Take all those lessons, put it in a new format. And you can see that these infantry training manuals largely carry on until the 80s. This is the last published set for the Vickers. So although it's 1951 dated, and you've got 3 parts still: mechanical subjects, drills and training, and fire control. 1951 is the last time a full set of manuals is printed for the Vickers, even though it stays in service until 68. Previously, 44, 41, 40, they'd been changing. Yeah. Not much changes after this point. So as we get into the 50s, stuff stabilises.
Right.
And how we use the Vickers is really, as I've said, we hit our peak, we stay.
Yeah. That's quite interesting, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was interested in is the Vickers in a national service environment. In the 1950s, we've got national service, and although I haven't got anything to physically show you here, we're gonna put some things on screen, and we're going to share some photos of men in the national service in the 50s being trained on the gun. Because of course, what we're looking at is a 2-year duration for the national service. They've still got to go through all the training on the gun. They may never actually get to use it at all in either Malaya or Korea or any of the other war zones that were involved in the 1950s. But then there's obviously a period of reserve after that where they'd be called on with that expertise of operating the gun. Now, I've managed to find some photos in the collection, and we've found photos elsewhere, but what would be really great, considering that most national servicemen will now be in their 80s or 90s, if you were a national serviceman, or if you have a relative that specifically trained on the Vickers machine gun, it'd be great if you could get in touch with us. If you've got any photographs or any stories or anything like that at all, we'd like to hear about that, because it's a grey area really when it comes to the gun, the national service. We've come out of the Second World War. We're approaching the 1960s when the gun is coming out of service, but we're in this sort of middle area. But that's what I've been looking at photos, and I'm sure we'll have some up on screen for you to look at.
So one of the things on that is that one of the first sort of visitor groups to the collection was a group of national servicemen from the Devon and Dorsets. I think it was Devon and Dorsets, 1960 to 62.
Okay.
And they were
So they were the final sort of
They
intake.
were the last machine gun platoon
Right.
of the Devon and Dorsets. So as they finished their national service, that machine gun platoon, the Vickers finished as well.
Yeah.
So, the Vickers is seeing out its time at the end of national service.
That's interesting.
But say in the 50s, they'd have gone through that course as if they were preparing for war in the same way.
Yeah. And of course, it's been transported differently as well, because we're looking at Series 1 Land Rover.
Well, we're looking at moving
champs.
So this is one of the interesting things about these pamphlets is they show, if I can find it, won't be able to, will I now?
No.
But they show the universal carrier in use, exactly the same as the Second World War. And the photos are actually the same photos. But they didn't use those beyond sort of the mid-50s.
Yeah.
So they transitioned to Austin Champs. They transitioned to, say, Series 1 Land Rover. There's the carrier photo.
Yeah.
But they didn't update the manuals. So there's in the vast numbers of manuals that we have, we can't find anything that shows a stowage diagram for a Series 1 Land Rover.
Or an Austin
we know they happened.
Yeah.
But it's funny what some things exist, what some things don't.
Yeah. So if you've got
that, tell us for sure.
What if the Vickers had been replaced post-war? I think we can kind of say here that the 1950s really kind of started in 1947, didn't they? If it hadn't gone on through to the late 60s, what would have replaced it?
So as the context, like you say, it starts in 47 because that's when a lot of the changes happen.
Yeah.
The machine gun battalions stop again. And they decentralise six Vickers per battalion. That exists till 62.
Yeah.
But they had intended to replace the Vickers. Remember, they intended to replace it towards the end of the 30s with the Baser.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and it survives the Second World War. And there's some great parliamentary quotes, which is probably a statement you won't hear very often. But they're talking about this old machine gun. And because MPs have a lot of experience and personal experience of the army at that point, very different to today, they talk about the Vickers they used. Well, we were using those in the First World War. Of course, it's that common thing that if it's old, it must be redundant.
Yeah.
So there was an intention to replace it. And the experiences, there's operational research group reports that say we want faster firing machine guns like the MG42. We don't need sustained fire in the same way. We just don't, blah, blah, blah. There's loads of reasons to change it. But nothing's come along.
Yeah.
So they do.
So at this stage, nothing's in development.
Not really.
Right.
There's no water cooled machine guns in development.
Yeah.
Water cooled guns have gone out of favour, and so they open a call up for it, and they look at the Tard and Tader, these different names for guns being developed at Enfield. And
Okay.
so all end in N. And part of the sustained fire machine gun programs, so SFMGs, not special forces, sustained fire. Yeah. So they look at those, and they're all air cooled.
Yeah.
And they just can't do the same job. The Army has not decided that it wants to get rid of proper sustained fire yet. And that's, we'll talk about this, like why the Vickers goes out of service another time, but that's what they're saying, we still need it.
Yeah.
And arguably they do, because Korea shows that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Korea shows that. Some stuff in Malaya they use in barrages and things in the same way. They tried to do a caliber change on this as well. So as you're aware, EM2 development, 280 is the round of choice politically. And the Canadians say, we think we're going to keep the Vickers for longer. We're going to change it to 280. So they do some trials on that.
Right.
Works. But 280 isn't 303. You know, that's a bit obvious to say, but it won't get the range and everything in the same way.
Or do the same job when it gets there.
Yeah. So they don't change it. And if the Vickers had been replaced, it's a bit like our earlier, what if machine guns hadn't been, would we have gone to more mobile warfare?
Right, yeah.
But at the same time, would we be able to defend those static positions in Korea? Would we have been able to create areas of deniability in Malaya, where in Germany had it happened, and to the point that these are always under the command of an infantry battalion.
Yeah.
So if you're relying on, the only other thing they've got to play with is mortars. So you're then going into mortars.
Yeah.
Everything else has to be called on for artillery.
Yeah.
So if the Vickers had been replaced, at the end of the Second World War, we might have seen some different outcomes in the mass casualty, massed infantry attacks, charge attacks, and things of Korea for sure. And certainly some of the evidence of First Northumberland Fusiliers, the Gloucesters, those battalions that served there, attribute a lot to their machine gun platoons. If you like what you're watching and you want to see more, leave a comment on YouTube and we'll give one person from those comments each episode a month's free subscription to Patreon, where you can access all of our archive and the firing videos that go alongside this series. We'll also, because we don't want to leave you out, any patrons that leave comments on the Patreon site for that video, we are going to select one from across the series and send you a copy, wherever you are, one copy of the Pride of the Emigies book that we retail. Obviously, terms and conditions will apply, so please have a read of those before you enter any of those competitions.
Small arms in the 1950s, development, we've got Korea, we've got Malaysia, we've got Re-Armament after the...
Malaya. At that point, Malaysia later.
Sorry. And then Re-Armament post the Second World War.
Yeah.
So what have we got on the table here?
It's that whole rearmament period. Can you remember the rearmament period of the 20s? Doesn't change much.
Yeah.
It was like machine guns and submachine guns. And actually, the rearmament period of the 50s is automatic. So the British are going to move from our number 4 bolt action rifles and the number 5s and things like that. Number 5 here. Number 5 rifle is actually is an interesting one because there's inference, and that's all I'll say, not evidence, inference, that this was going to arm everybody, not just Far East or jungle. So one of the clues for that is, if you're aware of the School of Infantry, the British Army School of Infantry, their logo is actually a number 5 bayonet from 1945.
Right.
So it's an SLR bayonet. No, it's not. It's a number 5 bayonet right from that period. So it was going to be the standard rifle, but clearly still bolt action.
But there is, we have photographic evidence of it in the Baltic, don't we, towards the end of the Second World War. Yeah. So it's picking up the jungle.
Is that a bit of a
later on, isn't it?
Bit of a misnomer.
It's an intent. They want a shorter rifle to work in the jungle.
Yeah,
that's a shorter rifle. No. It happens to fit everywhere as well. Yeah. It's a bit like the jungle pack ammunition for the Vickers.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Okay,
but so we've got the number 5. Then, quite remarkably, we go, automatic, because we've seen the assault rifles of the Second World War. Do we want to go fully automatic? And at the same time, we're also looking at how we do a caliber change from 303. So those that are aware of the politics of caliber changes, we were, this is really summative, and we proposed 280, 7 mil.
Yeah.
For a 303, which is 7.7 mil, we proposed a new shorter rifle, still a rifle cartridge, but a bit like the Germans went from the 7.92 to the 7.92 Kurz. So it's still a big bullet, but less power, because we don't need to fire out to 1,500 to 2,000 yards with it, which is going to go 400 to 1,000.
Right.
So we look to a 280. The Americans say, well, we want 30.06, 300 still, because we still want that range, and the BAR and things are automatic with that from the shoulder. So what are you?
Yeah. We
don't need to hit things as such. Quantity is a quality all of its own. So they can go with automatic, bigger round. The Belgians come along and say go 7.62, which is different. But what we start to propose is 280 and a new assault rifle.
Right.
And we propose the EM series of guns. So these are the experimental model, the EM1. This is an EM2 variant. And in which case, in this particular case, is a 7.62 variant of that. So it is a trial. These are all trials rifles.
Yeah.
It's believed to be around 59, possibly 65 of these, despite it being normally associated with the 280, the 280 caliber. Jonathan Ferguson at the Royal Armouries, who's written the book on these, has says actually those are some of the fewest.
Right.
The 7.62 ones are what end up in some of the wider trials with bigger numbers. So it's rare. Of course, it's rare, but it's not the rarest of the rare. So this is an EM2. It looks like a firearm, much more modern than you'd expect in the late 40s, early 50s. And there's some great trials footage and things of those. So that comes along, and then is faced with also from Belgium, the F Fabrique Nationale, the FN FAL. And this is, as you can see, it's a sectioned or skeletonized version of that. This was brought into service eventually as the SLR, self-loading rifle, the R1A1. So 7.62 millimeter with a 20-round detachable magazine, and akin to the 20-round BAR magazine, things like that. What's interesting about this particular example, this is what's referred to as an L20. I'm going to get this right or wrong. L26, actually that says L25 and it's been overstamped with L26. L26A1 is the instructional rifle of the L1A1.
Okay.
But rather than convert L1A1s, they've converted some of the trials rifles. So this is an X8E5, the experimental number 8 E5 as the variant of that. So it still has its full auto setting, no flash hider, charger guide for loading from charger guides, forward assist and things like that, all of which changed on the FFL. But these did end up in some service. And I think it's Cyprus where you see a battalion's worth fielded against EOKA and these terrorists over there.
So it was initially intended to be loaded by a charger, similar to the Liam.
So you'd have your magazines that would be issued to you.
Yeah.
But if you're in the field and you've run through your 6 magazines, then you're going to get bandoliers of chargers.
Right?
Yeah, chargers or stripper clips.
Yeah.
So you load them
a hangover from the First World War.
Arguably, yeah. So it's quite an interesting.
It is.
Obviously, on the L1A1, it disappears.
Yeah.
So we start to look to do this. What's quite interesting about this piece as well is that the NATO stock number is there, the NSN, and underneath on the magazine you've actually got the experimental markings still as well. So the magazines are from the experimental series. So we're really privileged to have quite a few sectioned firearms because it helps us understand and explain that the system. Oh, come on. They never balance. So we're doing that. The SLR wins out, or the FN wins out, and becomes what's widely known as the SLR. Also being changed is the Sten of the Second World War. has turned into the Mark V stem with the wooden stock and the pistol grip and things like that. Stays in service quite a long time, but the Sterling is a derivative of the Patchett, which is definitely seen in service in the Second World War. Nobody's argued. Well, everybody argues with that. But it's the Belgian SAS where you see it.
Operation Amherst, I think.
Not Arnhem.
No.
So the South Staff's having 150 of them at Arnhem.
I'm not sure.
Is to be debated, to be evidenced. But the Sterling submachine gun is going to come in for the British Army as well in 9mm, so to replace that. And actually, out of the firearms that I fired from the collection, that's certainly one that is just precise. Not very far out.
For an SMG, it's precise.
It's precise. And then a carryover as well is the adoption of the Browning High Power across. So actually, a 1935 firearm. And
so you're saying adoption as in, because it's in use in the Second World War in the 40s, but it's now being it's phasing out all the revolvers, the 38s and everything like that in the British Army.
Right. So it becomes the standard pistol of the British Army as an automatic rather than a revolver.
For quite a long time.
Into the 2000s. And just as an interest, for those why we got an orange magazine in it, is to allow the action to go forward. It's got to have a magazine present. So we 3D printed an orange one so that it's there and can sit in there all the time, rather than having to do the trick of getting your finger inside to depress the magazine catch. So that comes into service as well. So really sort of whole the replacement of firearms. Obviously, what isn't replaced is the Vickers, the Bren. They're not. They would talk about the Bren another day, but they looked caliber changes. We adopt the L1A1 in 7.62, the Sterling in 9mm, the Browning High Power in 9mm, and that becomes what we have.
And what have we got on? This is what is the rest of the world doing? Well, not the rest of the world, but some of the bigger powers.
So I think we've pulled a few out here. Matt, if you want to the PPS at the front there, these are Second World War firearms. The PPS and the PPSH are developed in the Second World War and then become sort of widespread around Warsaw Pact and the East influence. So these are going, but also they're developing new stuff as well. They also don't stand up, do they? And of course the AK-47 and all its variants. This is a Type 56-2, so this is a Chinese-made folding stock variant of the AK or the AK-47 in this case. So they are just everywhere where these are not. I think is probably the case. And then in between, we've got the American stuff. And they're looking to change their M1 Garands, which we put out. I don't know. We haven't at the moment. But their M1 Garands to the M14.
Right.
They're upgrading their machine guns and they're looking to do all of that. It's very similar stuff to what's happening over here as well. But they hold on to some legacy stuff at the same time.
Our Patreon members, we're going to head to the range now. YouTube members, we're going to head back to the dugout. If you are not part of my Patreon and you'd like to, for as little as £3 a month, you get access to our entire archive and all of the videos that we put out on our Patreon and our Discord as well for all the discussions. Okay, question time. Going to our followers on Patreon. This actually came up in a previous episode, but we've delayed it to the 1950s because it's more specific to this. So there were obvious developments in the tactical employment from World War I to World War II. Were there any significant changes from World War II, the Second World War, sorry, it's not a sequel, to Korea?
Tactical changes.
Tactical changes.
I don't think there were. I think we get in. Well, I suppose there was. Okay, so we started to lose the art of indirect fire again en masse because we've separated out our guns.
Yeah.
So we haven't got a battalion of 36. We've got 6 in other battalions.
Okay.
So the whole massed fire indirect. So when we talk about Korea and we say we've got 6 guns with Gloucesters at Imjin and we've got 6 with a first, etc. They're all working independently. They're not barrage fire. If they're covering somebody else, it's not by accident, but it's not coordinated in the same way. And arguably, they were going to lose the ability to do indirect fire and overhead fire completely, because the courses at the machine gun, what had become the heavy weapons wing at Netheravon, which is the insignia of this guy up here, actually, War Office Small Arms School Corps instructor at Netheravon, they'd stopped teaching it.
Yeah.
They'd
stopped teaching it?
Stopped teaching it,
right.
Yeah. So there is then an anecdote that we found years ago when I was doing some work with the Small Arms School Corps history, was that the first Gloucesters had actually asked for a refresher because they had people that had served with the Vickers battalions in the Second World War and went, wait a minute, we don't know how to do this. We've got the kit. Can we just have a refresher?
Yeah.
And you can't train that stuff in peacetime very easily because it uses loads of ammunition. Yeah. As they were going to war, they were able to. Yeah. So there was in the times of major conflict, they hadn't actually changed the tactics. They'd got that back, but there's a real risk that we would lose it.
So the Army's not decided whether they need to get rid of the indirect fire section, but the training school has.
Yeah, they'd stopped the courses. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it was all going to be taught directly from the manuals in the battalions, which you can't do very easily.
Yeah.
You can do it by numbers.
Yeah. And then another interesting question that's come up was the Vickers. So in the 50s, you have this new development of the helicopter for transport. So we've talked about it going from on the ground, going from being mobile on a universal carrier to the Austin Champ and the Series 1 Land Rover. But you have the development of the helicopter in the 1950s. Is there any evidence that Vickers were mounted in or transported by helicopter?
Certainly not mounted.
No.
I would say transported.
The steam would upset the pilot. But certainly not mounted.
No.
But yeah, transported, I can see it. We'd have to look in some of the
but it wouldn't
Malaya
have been
accounts,
specific.
Borneo.
It would have been you're being transported, as you say, it's gone back into the infantry. It's not.
Yeah, just be.
Well, I wonder if that development of helicopters then is in the background that's steering our decision over what we're going to do with this weapon platform, because we can't use it from a helicopter. I've seen images of Brens being used quite early on out of helicopters. And as we know, in Vietnam, the Americans progressed that with the M60s, etc. But none of us have ever been aware of any documentation of Vickers being mounted into helicopters. And I wonder if back at home, that's like, it's another cross against it because it's not air mountable.
Yeah, we'd stopped mounting the Vickers in aircraft in the Second World War. Gloucester Gladiators, the last use of that in sort of 42, 43. So we'd stopped aircraft use anyway. I think transporting them by helicopter makes good sense in that you can put them onto hilltops, you can put them into positions where your enemy might not be, or potentially you're just beyond the enemy. I won't say behind enemy lines, but just beyond the enemy or to flanks. So I can see the tactical potential. I'm just not aware of any. I'm not aware of it being recorded or photographed. But moving the ammunition is probably the challenge there, in that you can only move so many thousands rounds, and if you've disconnected your supply, you need the helicopter to go and get them or to take more ammunition in. The isolation of a machine gun becomes a problem.
Well, likewise, if the weapon was mounted on the helicopter in 250 round belts, then you've got how many ammunition boxes are you carrying within the helicopter to be able to feed the gun? You know.
Yeah, I mean, you still have that problem with GPMG and M60.
Yeah.
But the Vickers is just designed to eat up ammunition. And water.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Interesting one.
Yeah.
Certainly like to see any photos or evidence, if there's anything in Malaya accounts, Borneo, anywhere like that, of moving Vickers by helicopter. That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah.
That concludes episode 5, 1950s. Again, thanks for watching. Any questions, get in touch through our Patreon, on our Discord, and ask away. If you've got anything you can add, photographs or relatives' experience or anything like that, do get in touch. That'd be really, really interesting to find out. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Excellent.
See you later.
Bye-bye.